with parents not being able to smoothly drop off and pick up, as well as the buses. So we tried to shift some spaces around. In doing that, we reached out to all of the surrounding businesses and the courthouse and the hotels, and there was one resident as well. And the courthouse did have some concerns. I reached out to them to see if we can get them, if it would help if we got them parking passes, which they currently have for the metered spaces, which they had been using. I reached out to see if they would like to have parking garage parking passes for their staff. I haven't heard back yet, but that is an option that they seemed to be interested in. So that may have solved their concern with, essentially there was 3 spaces right in front of the courthouse that they were going to not lose entirely, but just have them be loading zones in the morning and the afternoon for the school drop off and pickup. So it'd still be widely available to them. But they had been using those spaces for staff. So it could be that the parking garage will solve the problem. I just haven't heard back from them yet. But they seemed interested in it. Just never heard the final confirmation.
Sure. Thank you. All right. I guess we'll check with the commission if there's specific questions on that. Commissioner Overby, was there something in particular you want to clarify?
Well, I was concerned. I know they're mentioned, the material we had just mentioned that they did have victims that were coming to the court parking in those spots along the back. And it looked like there was part of in our packet, it was missing some other drawing, but my concern was that that is the courthouse, and they do need to have not just staff parking there during the day, but people that are actually coming to court to testify or to be a part of a court case. And so my concern was that they mentioned in their comment that I couldn't tell what other communication. It sounds like there's still ongoing communication about those 3 spots on the north side of Cherry Street, which are being, cut back to the anytime other than the school loading morning and afternoon. But I just wanted to know how that might have been addressed, and if that, it sounds like that's still an open question about that, and the parking passes wouldn't really solve that problem. I suppose it would if they didn't use any of their staff there. But did they talk with you about options for the victims that would be parking there?
So we did talk about the accessible space. We had talked to them to make sure they used, there's an accessible space right in front of their, the courthouse. We checked that they are using that space. They wanted that space, so we're keeping that for them. We are right across the street. There is the parking garage that has wide availability for the users of the courthouse as well as the staff. And the spaces will still be metered parking for a majority of the day. It's just in the morning and the afternoon, there will be 2 windows of time that it is loading or unloading only.
Yeah, and there wasn't a proposal to only convert 2 of them to that. There wasn't any other discussion about that, like leaving one of the 3 still usable all the day time during the court hours. I don't know. I'm just asking you.
Well, the thought is that those spaces can still be used. It's not specific that it is only school loading and unloading. It just happens to align with the school loading and unloading times, but those spaces could still be used for whoever is trying to access the courthouse as well, even in the loading times, if they are truly loading and unloading, and then if they need to park in the parking garage for long term, they have that option.
So as long as that seems to be okay with the courthouse. I know they seem to be concerned. They said that all the north and the south, and this is obviously a temporary thing, while the high school is still downtown. However, that is a critical function, the courthouse. And so their mention of, just reading their comment, that they lost all of the parking on the south side of Cherry Street initially, and then they lost most of the north side, and now this is where they're really losing everything else on the north side. So
Yeah,
as long as you're good with that, that they're comfortable with that, that's my concern. about this, if it could have been adjusted to not take all of those spots, but maybe it's not possible.
Yes, it is only 6 spaces on that north side that in total we are turning into this temporary loading zone with still metered parking for a majority of the day.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from commission? Commissioner Tanu?
Yeah, it just appears on the engineering document that the parking meter heads are going to be removed for those 3 parking spots.
For kiosks, we are planning to put in kiosks.
Aha, yes. All right, cool.
Ultimately.
Any other commissioners? All right. Check briefly if anyone's interested in speaking from the public on this item.
As of now, there's nobody in queue online.
Here. All right, we'll bring it back to the commission for a vote. And well, I guess
Motion.
welcome a
to
motion.
approve.
Yes.
That's right.
We have a motion from Commissioner Barr. Thank you.
Seconded.
Seconded from Commissioner Fox. Is there any discussion around that motion? All right, let's go to a vote then. Commissioner Damiani,
Aye.
Commissioner Montanu,
Aye.
Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
Commissioner Barr,
Aye.
Commissioner Overby.
Aye.
Aye for myself. Motion's passed 6-0. Thank you. Now, to get ahead of ourselves before, now I believe we are on item 5, Plattsburg Avenue.
You are correct.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I just have a presentation that I'll share, so we're all looking at the same thing.
Thank you.
My name is Julia Ursaki. I'm a Public Works Transportation Engineer. And I am Laura Wheelock, Senior Public Works Engineer. And we are here tonight to talk about the Plattsburg Ave bike lanes. So just for some brief context, we originally looked at this street because it was paved this past summer. And in Plan BTV Walk Bike, there are painted bike lanes recommended in the short term on Plattsburg Ave. Also in the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission's active transportation plan, they have Plattsburg Ave as a priority route for bicycle connections. And this bike lane on Plattsburg Ave would provide key connections between Burlington and Colchester, also connects New North End neighborhoods to the bike lanes on North Ave, and access to Flynn Elementary School, which is on North Ave just up the street. So the existing conditions of the road is about 31 feet wide right now. So to fit in the bike lanes, we would have to remove the parking lane, but no changes to the curb. So this can just be accomplished with restriping. The next few slides are the concept plan that were attached to the memo. This is basically showing how that section that we just looked at translates to what would be painted on the ground. I will just note that the design of the North Ave and Plattsburg Ave intersection isn't finalized yet. We're still looking at traffic volumes and going to do a traffic model to see if we can make these changes to this intersection. So that's not part of what we're here for tonight. It's just about removing the parking along Plattsburg and restriping the bike lanes. So we have them continuing, some markings through the intersections along Plattsburg Ave. And they continue past Turf Road up to River's Edge Drive, where they'll stop. Currently, there's a path a little further to the north over here, and I'll talk about later. We're hoping to have another phase of this where we look at the next step for bicycle connectivity here. As part of this effort, we did a bunch of parking counts for the existing on-street parking on Plattsburg Ave, and we eventually also started looking at the side streets nearby just to figure out if there was enough capacity nearby for the cars that would be displaced from being able to park on Plattsburg if they had anywhere else to go. We did see mostly very low parking utilization on Plattsburg. The highest number of cars parked we saw was 2 cars, mostly on the weekends, out of the approximately 47 spaces there are on the road now. And we also saw that there was ample parking on the nearby side streets to accommodate that loss on Plattsburg. And just for the record, there's unrestricted parking on the side streets, Turf Road, Clover Lane, and Barley Road. We also considered the possibility of basically widening the road to provide parking and bike lanes just to see what was possible, but we determined that it would be too expensive and there is not enough space on the side of the road where the parking currently is because that's where the sidewalk is and all the existing utilities. And then a brief overview of the outreach we've done to date. We originally had a neighborhood meeting back in May where we sent mailings to the about 100 residents and property owners along Plattsburg Ave telling them about this concept. At the neighborhood meeting, we heard concern from the neighborhood about parking loss. And in response, we decided to do some additional parking counts, which we did twice, and also traffic counts. And then a few weeks ago, in advance of this meeting, we sent out another mailing notifying the neighborhood of our recommendation. We also communicated with the New North End counselors that represent this area just to let them know that we were bringing this recommendation tonight. And these bike lanes also have received strong support from the Walk Bike Council and Local Motion. And like I mentioned before, we are thinking about a future phase of how to connect where these bike lanes end up through the 127 corridor all the way up to Colchester. So that's kind of our next step. We just want to acknowledge that we're gonna be working on it, but we're just trying to take it one step at a time. So that is it.
Great, thank you for the overview. I will bring it back to the commission for any discussion or comments on this. Commissioner Fox.
I'll just say I'm really supportive of this this change. Someone who lives in this area, kind of between the Old North End and the New North End of Burlington, and bikes all the time. This is a much needed connection, and I'm super grateful for the data collection effort that the Public Works Department put into this. I think it's a really strong case, and I see no reason why it shouldn't move forward.
Commissioner Barr.
Sure, I'm very supportive of this as well. I tend to bike out there quite a bit. I'm just curious if we've thought about extending the Beltline bike path out to maybe meet this at some point. I'd just like to throw that out there as a possibility because I tend to get off the bike path and then try and find a way to cut through to get to the newest part of the New North End.
Yeah, I don't think we've thought about that yet specifically, but could be part of future.
It's just a fun one, and then that's a recreational path that a lot of folks use. So, but I think that it's a great thought. We're always going to lose parking here and there, but as long as there's zones that people can continue to find parking within close walking distance, I think this is a great thing.
Thank you. Commissioner Damiani.
I'm also very supportive of this. I think I'm most excited about that future phase coming off of 127 and sort of speed traffic calming efforts that we can put in place to get cars coming off of that particular road.
All right. Commissioner Montano.
Yeah, I couldn't be more supportive. I'm excited to see the full implementation once it's beyond just like collards on the road in some places. But this is certainly a really important step. I got a couple questions actually. The first is about the parts of this plan that might be delayed. So you mentioned it was the North Avenue intersection that there needs to be more work done. Could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So to fit the bike lanes through the intersection, we would have to remove the right turn lane, which is something we brought a very similar presentation to the neighborhood meeting back in May and heard a lot of concern about losing that right turn lane. So we actually just did a traffic count there recently and are going to look at it in traffic modeling software just to see if, you know, it works for everyone to remove the lane. But if not, we're definitely going to work hard to accommodate bikes through the intersection still.
Right on. And what about the northernmost section between River's Edge Drive and Turf Road?
Yeah, so we're hoping to have a bike box and make it easy for bikes to get who are traveling northbound to kind of take that left and get onto the path that exists on the west side of the road now. And definitely connect into the future phase of hopefully keeping bikes on the road up to the 127 intersection. So
Is that also waiting just further study?
yeah, so the future connection is a little complicated because 127 is a limited access highway up to the city limits or where the bridge is, which means bikes and pedestrians aren't legally allowed to be on it, so we can't put a bike facility on it. And also there's the slip ramps, the right turn lanes that are pretty dangerous for bikes, so we want to look at making that whole intersection a bit more safe before we add a bike facility there.
Right. But I was referring to like just the one block north of Turf Road, so that's still
Oh,
still a little bit of ways from where it actually becomes a highway.
Oh,
from
okay.
Where it really meets 127.
So these would go all the way to Sunset Drive.
Oh,
beyond
okay.
Turf.
Got
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah. Very excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Overby.
I also support the bike lanes and this change. And I had a question about the intersection there at North Ave and Plattsburg Avenue as well. Isn't that part of the North Avenue plan? There was a whole study done of the whole North Avenue, and that might have been one of the intersections that was considered for a roundabout in the future. Am I remembering that correctly?
Chapin is shaking his head.
Yes, Commissioner Overby, you are correct. The North Ave corridor did look at the potential of roundabouts at various intersections. This was one where roundabout was studied. It said that further study was needed, but that was a potential improvement along the corridor. Yes.
So I took that because it was marked as for further study, that it wasn't relevant to being able to accomplish what we're talking about in this vote, correct? It's going to be fine to be able to approve this particular proposal that you have now, with that in mind, that decision about how to fix the problem with the right turn lane or the whatever that intersection is can go forward. Am I understanding that?
Yes, that there's nothing with the decision tonight that precludes that intersection from receiving improvement in the future, regardless of whether it remains signalized or transitions to a roundabout.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Overby. Some question. I appreciate the counts in the data that were shared here as well. I know it's been a drawn-out process with a lot of touch points with public meetings along the way, and I appreciate the effort there. Question on what sort of milestones would we be looking for before we would look at a protected bike lane here? Is there any consideration to just doing that now?
We did definitely think about that. I think the challenge is there are a lot of other places in Burlington that are also waiting for protected bike lanes, and our funding constraints and staff capacity is kind of limiting that factor. So because this was initially just supposed to be coordinated with paving, it was supposed to be kind of an easy, we can just restripe it the way we want it, kind of no-brainer. That's the direction this is now. It wasn't a separate, we're building the best bike facility we can on Plattsburg Ave, which I think is going to come in the future. I'm not sure when. I think once we look at the connections up to Colchester and can make that a little better, it's like kind of one step at a time versus trying to do some big project that won't really be on the ground or we won't see an impact for many, many years.
Yeah. I get that, thank you. We should also say, demonstrate our ability to properly maintain and keep the protection up on a bike.
That's
protect the
right.
Bike lanes elsewhere.
I think the other important note is the cross section here. It's a limited 31-foot curb to curb, and without moving curb, the protection zone would be extremely narrow. This is a truck route, so it would not only be challenging to maintain, but costly, and that there are other areas in the city that are probably a higher priority, that are definitely a higher priority for that kind of level of protection, as we'll be installing soon on North Winooski, North Champlain Street, for example, with a two-way protected facility. So we're looking to prioritize the protection in areas where we're going to get a high level of use and a high level of safety benefit.
Yeah, noted, thank you. Like the renderings, on the street mix stuff there, I was wondering if you looked at the 3D rendering tool that sort of like spins off of that?
No, is it?
Yeah,
through
take a
Street
peek.
Mix?
It's free and open source. It's 3dstreet.org. I believe you can feed it your street mix rendering. Probably more exciting in places with a little more interesting cross section than what we're looking at here on Plattsburg.
Yeah,
Ave,
that's
but it could be a fun and easy thing to play around with in other areas. I haven't tried it myself. Or endorsed it, but I want to know that it's a thing that's there and available. We're trying. Okay, yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you. Let's open up for public comment. We have at least one take in the room. Welcome. And we've got your name on the on the board there. Great. You're on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Comstock from Ward 7, and I happen to live on Plattsburg Avenue. So in my view, putting 2 bike lanes on Plattsburg Avenue as this proposal does, I think is ridiculously unsafe and will be ineffective to provide the key points listed on that Julia provided earlier in terms of neighborhood connection, transport to and from Flint School, and a connection to Colchester. And I say that because the plan as proposed really doesn't reflect the neighborhood traffic pattern as it exists on the ground and the way the neighborhood actually uses these streets. So during the public engagement process, the neighborhood actually came up with an alternative proposal that seems to be disregarded in this decision, and I'm really troubled by that because I think it's far more elegant than the solution on the table. So the neighborhood came up with the idea of that the North Avenue bike lane, when it hits that intersection at Plattsburg Avenue, should continue north on the same side of North Avenue to the intersection of Turf Road, right across the street from Flynn School. And one point advantage to that is you're not losing any parking on that side of North Avenue because there is none. So what it would do would provide a direct transport route to the intersection of Turf Road and then put the bike lane across Turf Road through the Turf Road neighborhood out to North Avenue at that intersection, which is, and then from there, you could very safely turn left onto the bike path that proceeds to the 127 bridge across the bridge into Colchester and never be crossing traffic, for one. And so all of the River's Edge condominium neighborhood, Valade Park, Sunset Drive, all of those neighborhoods cross North Avenue right there at the condominium. So that would be the place to route traffic across the road, bike traffic and pedestrian traffic across the road that would then, and so the bike lane would travel on the west side of Plattsburg Avenue at that point up to Turf Road, cut over through Turf Road neighborhood directly to Flynn School, because that's the way people use the neighborhood. And then again, it would facilitate the transition to the Colchester connection much more effectively than this plan would, because then there would be no need to cross traffic back across Plattsburgh Avenue to connect to the Colchester connection. And I guess the other point I would kind of like to make is that in the neighborhood, I would say that the loss of parking on Plattsburgh Avenue is a secondary concern to trying to represent a realistic traffic flow pattern within the neighborhood. And by putting the bike lane area on Turf Road, you could still use parking on one side of that street, and it would be much more efficient or effective for people who were displaced from parking on Turf Road to park on Clover and Barley, which is much more nearby than requiring people who live on Plattsburgh Avenue to go all the way around the other side of the block and park on Clover or Turf. So I think there's an efficiency to be gained there as well. All right, so that's kind of the highlight that I really would encourage you to reconsider the alternative proposal that the neighborhood, came up with during the public engagement process. And I don't know if you have any other questions of me, I'd be glad to try to address them.
I don't at this time. Thank you. I think that line and suggestion, I think, was in some of our, the public comment that was in our packet as well. It's not the first I've heard of it.
Yep. I guess I would just sort of add that I think another advantage to this approach is that it would help resolve any of the future traffic management congestions concerns that you have about the Plattsburgh Avenue, North Avenue intersection headed, and the 2-lane portion headed south right there. I think this approach would also eliminate some of those complications as well.
All right.
Right?
Yeah. Thank you for
That's
your comments.
All right. You're welcome.
Anyone else for public comments?
There's no one currently signed up in queue.
All right. Gotcha. We had Mr. Stoffel speak earlier related to this. But if no one's in queue, I guess we could bring it back to the commission. Welcome a motion on this item if anyone has one.
Would make a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Second?
Motion from Commissioner Barr, second from Commissioner Damiani. Is there any discussion around the motion?
I just wanted to bring up one point, because what Mr. Comstock brought up, I do understand that it might change the dynamics of bikes going along Plattsburgh Avenue, but I did note that would mean that bikes would have to go against traffic, because it's one way coming out of Turf. So if I understand it right, the bikes would come up and go down Turf and pick up North Avenue if they're going south. Is that just to understand? So all the bikes going north would go where there's no cars right now along the cemetery on Plattsburgh Avenue. But the ones coming up, if they didn't go down Plattsburgh, they would be going against traffic on Turf. And there's right now 2 lanes. And I use that when I drive there as well from Curtis Ave and Star Farm Road, that area, to get back onto the Beltline. And it just, that's one of the reasons why I still like this plan. Just wanted to let you know that.
Commissioner Overby, do you have a comment? Clarification on the questions on the motion?
I did have, I feel like it's really hard for me to understand what this alternative routing is without seeing a map.
Can you pull up the map?
And I'm not sure if that was in materials that I didn't get. I got the packet on paper format. And if the map of this alternative proposal by the community was in the packet electronically, I apologize that I did not get it. But I have, okay, that would be helpful. what is the route that we're talking about that was proposed by the gentleman that just spoke?
Can you see my mouse?
I can see your map.
Okay, I don't know why the labels aren't loading, but this here is Turf Road, and then that little piece of Barley, and then this is North Ave.
Okay.
Coming in, so that's the route.
So the proposal is to just continue straight up and then cut over.
Correct.
Okay. So, I mean, it looks like that's an alternative, but it looks like most people would not take that route were they trying to get to Colchester in the future. So ultimately, we're going to end up where we are with this proposal anyway, having the bike lanes on Plattsburg Avenue. I know we've had the wiggle in the Old North End, and I had a concern about having a route that was set that just didn't, make sense for people that are just trying to expeditiously get from point A to point B. But thank you for showing me the map. And I see that it definitely could be used, but it seems like it's probably going to be both of those routes for bicycles probably make sense. So that helps me out where Turf Road was. Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
So we have a motion that's been seconded. Is there any other discussion around the motion? All right, let's go to a vote then. Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
Commissioner Barr,
Aye.
Commissioner Mutanu,
Aye.
Commissioner Damiani,
Aye.
Commissioner Overby.
Aye.
Aye for myself. The motion's passed 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving forward, item 6, North Winooski Ave update.
Great. Thank you all. Joining me is Philip Peterson, now with a PE license.
Boy, oh,
Woohoo.
geez. Great power comes great responsibility.
Great. We're going to tag team, and he brought the memo, and I didn't. So thank you for that, Philip. So basically, we're not seeking any approvals tonight, but as the commission has requested for complicated, complex items, you've asked us to do it in a two-step process wherever possible. And so what we'd like to do tonight is just give you an update of our work to date and telegraph that at the January 2023 meeting, we are likely bringing forward traffic regulation changes to adjust the regulations on the parking that's remaining on North Winooski Avenue between Union Street and Riverside Avenue. As you all may recall, the City Council has supported the implementation of the Winooski Avenue Transportation Study, which was a corridor study. But they asked in this latest resolution that they passed for us to delay the paving a year and the restriping a year, which we have done. They have asked us to work with businesses to maximize shared parking and off-street parking, because with this phased implementation, it will remove parking from Union Street up to Riverside Avenue on the east side of the street. 40 spaces will be removed. It's around, I think, 40% of the parking that's in that section. There's more parking on the west side. So with that, Philip and I and many others on this team have been working to carry out the council's direction. And so Philip's going to run through some of the initiatives that he has coordinated. I'll talk about some of the ones I have coordinated. And then in January, we'll be looking for you to change the regulation of the remaining spaces to best meet the needs of the residents, businesses, and visitors of the corridor.
So baked into the city council's resolution at the March meeting was $15,000 in seed funding for transportation demand management grants to be distributed to folks along North Winooski Avenue from Union to Riverside, nonprofits, businesses alike, so that they could take advantage of that. I provided that information in the memo. Hopefully you've had a chance to review it. We did distribute those funds. Some were as simple as we're going to install a bike rack for them. Some were more complex. CHCB would like to do a survey through CATMA to get an understanding on their patients' transportation demand needs coming to CHCB. So along with that, I've been looking at geometric things that we can do, possibly putting in some curb extensions so we can get a couple more parking spaces in there. It's not the best solution, but every space counts at this point. With that, what's going to happen in December, we will send off mailers to folks along North Winooski Avenue, letting them know what our intentions are to proceed with some recommendations to do the parking removal, and then engage with the public directly through email, through knocking on doors. I'm sure we'll be out there talking to folks directly. There are a lot of needs out there in terms of time-limited parking. There's daycare, restaurants, you name it, and all these folks have different needs, competing needs in the streets, and we want to provide resources for those folks in this transition time period. And then I think Chapin can talk about some of the public parking off-street.
That's right. So, coordinated with the work Philip's been doing, I've been connecting with the property owners and businesses along the corridor to help open up shared parking so that if they needed their parking, say, during business hours, Monday through Friday, could they make their parking available to customers on nights and weekends? We have made some progress. It has been slow and small. At this point, we have indication from the Burlington Housing Authority that they are willing to share 6 spaces of theirs to the Community Health Center of Burlington, which is CHCB, for their employees or patients. So they are negotiating that. But a number of businesses have been reluctant to share their parking out of concern of liability or of their own primary needs. So what the city is preparing to do is put together a proposal where we would offer a turnkey program. Right now, the city manages the parking for Champlain College under 194 St. Paul Street, which was developed on an old municipal parking lot, Brown's Court, for those who remember. And the commission had approved that effort. So the city has precedent for enforcing and managing private lots on others' property. And our proposal will be to do the same here, which would relieve the burden from the property owners of having to manage off-peak parking. And we would provide a share of the revenue, a majority of the revenue that would be shared with the property owner such that it would be financially beneficial to them to utilize this service, if so interested. So we will be sharing that with them in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully that will generate some additional interest. And I have also been in discussions with the Community Health Center of Burlington around developing off-street parking for them. There are 2 potential property owners adjacent to the Community Health Center of Burlington where off-street parking could potentially be accommodated. The Community Health Center of Burlington is working with a consultant that's exploring this option. Community Health Center of Burlington has asked us to look for grant opportunities where the city may be able to help fund a project. They estimate that the projects that they've been just roughly estimating would be somewhere in the realm of $500,000 for these off-street lots. And as you may know, the Community Health Center of Burlington, their employees and their customers currently use a lot of the parking on North Winooski Avenue and surrounding streets because their on-site parking is insufficient to meet their current need. So that is the update. We are also committing to ongoing neighborhood outreach. We've told the council that we will have at least quarterly updates to the community as this moves forward. Paving is scheduled for next summer. VTrans is doing the work as North Winooski Avenue is a Class 1 town highway, and the parking changes would be made at that time. I always gloss over the fact, and I probably should be explicit, that the reason we're making this change in alignment on this section is to finish the final gap in a city of Winooski all the way to the south end of Burlington bike lane connection. With all the other changes that we've made in the city, we have this one gap in the system. And while this change does impact 40 spaces in a vibrant area, we're committed to minimizing that impact to the greatest extent possible. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the overview. Bring it back to the commission for discussion. From Commissioner Damiani.
Yeah, I just have two questions and comments. One is that for the public outreach that occurs in that neighborhood, I just asked that some of that happens sort of right before shift times start, especially at the local restaurants along that corridor. I know a lot of folks who worked at those restaurants spoke out at previous public periods. And then speaking to that too, I wasn't sure. I know that the particular part that we're looking at is just the parking regulations, but I was just curious if there was any discussion around any sort of infrastructure improvements to the surrounding neighborhoods where folks may park on those side streets in terms of public safety. I don't know what those exact improvements would be, but something to address many of the public safety concerns that were brought up during past public meetings.
I am not aware of discussion that we've had of any changes on side streets. We have made some minor tweaks to signage to help compliance on some of the side streets. If there are concerns such as with lighting, Burlington Electric is a good partner with us, and they are the ones who evaluate lighting levels and can increase the brightness of a particular street for it to meet their standard. So if there are concerns on particular corridors with light levels, they can contact us or Burlington Electric.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Montano.
I guess I just have one quick question regarding this plan to develop off-street parking. What are the what other like specific updates do you have? Like, where might these lots be? How did you come to this $500,000 number? And like, what other parties are involved in seeking this grant funding and then executing this plan?
Right. Thank you. We've been in communication with Community Health Center of Burlington, and then they have been in communication, as have we, with some of their adjacent property owners, particularly Charlebois Rigging and Queen City Steel. They're both vibrant businesses in the city with their own operational needs, but there are conversations about working with them to explore off-street parking in their facilities. There are significant geotechnical concerns. There's significant elevation gain between both of those properties and the Community Health Center of Burlington. So whether it's bank stability, which you all have heard about along the Riverside Avenue corridor for the parking areas, or simply pedestrian access up to the building itself, are going to be challenges that need to be addressed in design. So the community, if the city was desirous of exploring a municipally run facility, we could have those discussions. At this point, we've really advanced the communications is how can we help CHCB meet their parking needs, and we can look for funding. We can help provide guidance. We have offered our engineers to provide some conceptual support. They have their own consultants on board and have not tapped that, but we are aware that while ultimately their parking need, they need to lead that effort to meet their need. We understand this change on street is precipitated from the rebalancing of the street, which is an effort that we are advancing. So we have a role to play. At this point, our role has been supportive, but we're open to hearing from others if there's a different role you suggest we play.
Thank you for that update. That's all for now.
All right. To the phone, Commissioner Overby.
I just want to first say that I am very impressed with the process that's been taken with this project, and the department's efforts to work with everybody and willingness to delay and figure things out, because this is really a challenging area for everybody. But I just want to I want to commend the department for the way this has been handled and the continuing effort to integrate all the various needs and interests. And particularly the suggestion, the comment that was just made about the possibilities of parking structures down on, off the Intervale Road section there for those other businesses. Because I know we've talked in the past about, I know this is a focus of right now, Community Health Center needing parking, but in fact, some of the problems we have in Burlington, or all these parking problems, have to do with people who need to store their vehicles on the street. And that does not leave parking for people that need to come and go to a business or a job or as a patient. So the idea of maybe even considering things like a city facility or another parking facility down on Intervale Road opens a possibility for something like a long-term parking structure that people could use, and then the parking their vehicles very accessible, whether it's just CHTP, the community health people, but in the future. So I just want to say first that I'm really impressed with the way that process has worked, and things like this that come about when you do take the time to let everybody put some input and chew it around and we push it around. Very impressive how this is going, and I appreciate that effort. The other thing I wanted to just mention in the comment about Green Mountain Transit being encouraged to continue doing the free transit. I think one of the challenges to Green Mountain Transit it is the marketing of it. And so a lot of the transportation demand issues, people just are not riding the bus, not because they don't want to, it's they just aren't really familiar with the routes and the timing and how convenient it is and where they come and go from. So that suggestion that Green Mountain Transit have that route continue, and I think it was called the City Loop. It needs to be marketed so that people know very clearly where that City Loop is, because I'll bet you a lot of people that live along the City Loop don't even know where that loop goes, or they might not know where the other, the Route 9 bus that goes between downtown Burlington and downtown Winooski. So I'm impressed with this project, and I know it's going to be painful for some of the people along North Winooski that would, are comfortable with what we have, but I feel like we're moving in the right direction, and it's going to make it easier for people to commute back and forth. And many more bicyclists, I think, are going to then make use of coming into the neighborhood on a bicycle or the bus, if we can do a good job of marketing all those other options. And then there will be, and if you remove people that are storing their vehicle on the street, then that leaves more spaces for those people that do need them to go to the restaurant or to shop, because they're not just people that need their vehicle to go skiing on the weekends, but they leave them there for the rest of the time. So congratulations, this is really moving in a direction that I'm happy to see, and I appreciate the effort. Thank you very much.
All right,
Thank you.
Commissioner Fox.
Yeah, I really appreciate the update. The only question I had that Director Spencer kind of already answered was, around like the precedent for the parking agreements with the city. As a person who manages parking and understands that the city also does a lot of managing of parking, I feel like there are ways to not easily, but to address those liability concerns with like really short, kind of template contract language and that sort of thing. So I appreciate that is an approach that the city has thought of and is working with the businesses on, because it's creative, and I think it could be a good strategy here. But yeah, that was the only thought I had on this one.
Thank you. Commissioner Barr.
Thanks. I guess I'd like to say, very well put, all of the descriptions, and it makes it very easily understandable. But the plight of TDM and trying to make sure that communicate all the different transportation options is something that's going to continue to be a struggle, because as people are used to driving single occupancy vehicles and parking them, they are just used to that, and they don't. A lot of people think that cyclists are for recreation, when in some cases that's the only way that some people can get around. So we really do need to make sure that the streets are complete and they're used for all modes. So I know that it's a pain for some of the folks that might park in those 40 spaces, but if alternatives are found for them, I think that's definitely the direction we need to keep going in. So I appreciate everybody's work towards that effort. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to see the progress here and the innovative options we're pursuing. Wish you the best in that. Want to mention myself and Vice Chair O'Neill Vivanco had a good conversation with a woman from AALV at the Transportation Summit last month.
Mhm.
And I can share her contact info offline, but I just want to point out again that like they're a great resource for connecting with the New American communities and
That's a good point.
helping vet ideas for engaging with
Mhm.
different segments of our communities that we don't often catch from our regular meeting cycles.
Yeah.
Another question with regard to the paving in 23, are we aiming for protected bike lanes there?
No, they would be painted at this
Mhm.
stage of the game.
One on each side?
No, just
Okay.
yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Can't keep things straight.
We end up with a very similar constraint. It's a cross-section constraint. In order to keep one set of parking, the lanes are going to be close to minimums. And so there is no room for protection without moving curb, which
Correct.
could be a subsequent phase of the project, but is beyond the financial means at this time.
First things first.
Yep.
Great. Another topic that's come up, Kate, I know we brought it up last year. It was brought up in public comment earlier this fall on zoned residential parking.
Mm.
And I wonder in cases like this where it's obviously the parking's tight, I wonder if zoned residential parking permits could provide some additional flexibility here. And what it would take, I mean, obviously that's a conversation not just for the forum that's sitting here tonight. There are other city boards at play with that. Curious what you think. You think
Right.
That's great.
It is a possible tool. It's one of the tools that was mentioned in the North Winooski parking management plan to look at. It does come with pros and cons. And one of the things that we thought is moving up the level of regulation is to work with time-limited parking first. We believe that time-limited parking throughout the day, at least during peak times, would limit the number of people who are storing their car on the street because there would be a requirement to move it at least once a day. So we think that that's going to be able to get cars rotating and moving. If neighbors don't find that to be sufficient, we can go up the regulatory ladder. The challenge is it brings registrations in, people need to pay for it. It requires, more due diligence of people on the street when they have guests come by. It has some implications, and given that this is a commercial corridor with commercial needs, it's a level of complexity we're hoping we can address without going that direction.
Yeah, the issue is lack of public parking for folks to come, restaurants, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's more the constraint.
And we want to
overnight.
drive people who live in the area to use the lots off street to the greatest extent possible.
Mhm.
Not use the precious on-street resource that are, being used heavily by commercial users.
I appreciate the unique thinking, and it's something that's on my list. And I would love the contact information for the gal from ALB.
Yeah, will do. Okay. Is there? I think we're on a good path here, and I'd like to preview in advance of any needed votes on it. Just feel like curious what it would take to make a zone residential parking happen. Like, even if it's not the right thing now for North Winooski, is there something do we need ordinance changes or something that we need to where we need to get it in the queue this year to be able to do it next year somewhere else?
We can definitely take a look at that. I believe that we can just establish an area that may include multiple different streets as the same zone, but we'll double check an ordinance that there's an easy fix that wouldn't require
We have done that before for when there's been paving projects. I forget the street on UVM campus that we allowed to park on another street. So we created a temporary zone during construction season. I think it was like 3 years ago. So we have done that.
And then we've had to look at things for like the corner lots. where, like,
Absolutely.
my address is on this street, but
Right.
you know, it doesn't help me. My driveway's here.
We'll
It
take
is
a look at
possibility.
ordinance and see if any changes are required.
I think one of the X factors here is there's a lot of social engineering that's going to go into this because, you know, the folks in the community have to sign off on it too.
Great. Nothing further on my end. Let's open up for public comment.
Jason Stuffle, you are in queue and ready to talk.
Okay, I'll ask if you can hear me okay, hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah.
loud and clear.
Okay, nice, perfect. Yeah, I would just say, my only comment is on the zoned residential parking that, that's something that makes sense to have citywide to be flexible with the parking. On Colchester Ave, it currently makes sense because eventually all that parking is gonna be removed. And I say, like, I had a Colchester Ave residential pass, still do, where I can park 1,000 feet away from my house. But Nash Place, that's like 150 feet away, I can't park on there. So it doesn't make sense kind of from that logistical standpoint. But another area that makes sense is on Flynn Ave, where there's only a bike lane on one side and not the other. And I see very few cars parked there, but there's plenty of side streets there that you could park on, but they're kind of residential only for that only street. So I think it would just make a better flexible system. And if maybe it's not applied here, please pursue that for just future city, parking resources to make them not strictly by a street basis, because that doesn't always make sense. So thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And that's it for our public comment queue.
Okay. Great. We got everyone from the commission? All right, we're not seeking any action at this time.
Yeah.
Not yet.
But soon.
Appreciate the preview and all the work behind this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Moving forward, we're up to director's report.
Great, thank you. I'll start off and then ask City Engineer Nor Baldwin what I might have forgotten here. The big update for the commission was related to Green Mountain Transit in my packet. As you may know, Burlington is looking at a significant assessment increase this year. And in addition, GMT, in order to balance the budget, is looking to reinstate fares as of FY24. And I know the community has been very interested in keeping fare free. And so I am working as a commissioner to advance efforts to look at changing the way transit is funded, which relies heavily on local member assessments. Burlington pays over half of all member assessments in the region. And property tax for transit, if we truly want to grow transit, is going to be a very difficult funding mechanism to grow our transit service. So we have asked GMT Finance Director Nick Foss to join us at the next Transportation, Energy, and Utilities Committee meeting on the 22nd, I believe, of this month. Is that right?
The 22nd, correct?
22nd. So the public's welcome to come to that 5 p.m. And we'll have a discussion both about expanding service, regional funding, and the FY24 assessments. Project updates, I'm really excited to announce. Last time we talked about the roundabout moving towards completion. The opening celebratory event is going to be tomorrow at 10 a.m. You're welcome to come join us. The mayor and leaders from the state will be celebrating the opening of the facility tomorrow. We will also be having an opening for University Place in the coming weeks. So those are my major updates. Norm, what else?
I think you covered most everything except one important point, and that is, as you're aware, we've been down staff particularly two positions. More recently, when Nicole Loesch's departure and Elizabeth Ross's departure in our transportation team. And you heard some of the good work that Julia is doing to continue to push forward with some of the active transportation. Our intent was to have three people really committed to that work to make significant progress as it relates to traffic calming and bike and walk facilities. And happy to announce that we actually have offered and filled the two positions. We have a senior planner. His name is Dayton Kreitz. And then the planner is Ravi. I can't pronounce his last name, but they are intending to be here at the end of December. So we're excited to have them on board. I think they'll be really great addition to my team, and we're looking forward to having us make significant progress on things that have kind of been sitting latent and we've been struggling. So the public expects us to begin to really push hard, and we're going to be trying to do that.
Thank you.
Good news.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Yep.
Bumping up our expectations.
Yes.
Good. Yes, Norm's team's been understaffed for a while. We're very appreciative of the extra effort. You saw most of the team tonight, and I had the team presenting early this morning at BTV Stat. So people put in a long day today.
Great.
That's it. Mr. Goulding, anything else?
You hit it.
All right, great. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks so much. With that, move forward to item 8, Commissioner Communications. Let's start down here with Commissioner Fox.
I'll be honest, I don't have any comments
All right.
this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Barr.
Nope, I actually don't have any comments either.
Commissioner Overby.
I just had one question about, it looks like you've been doing some white crosswalk striping. Have I noticed that? Is there a change in some of the method of doing the crosswalk striping from the red fake brick to the white striping, which I know has been advocated by a former DPW commissioner for years?
That is, I spoke to that former DPW commissioner just yesterday. He's very engaged. Yes, we have been transitioning away from the red brick crosswalks. Greatest concern is that they have been slippery under wet conditions, and they also are not as visible. So we are transitioning to the traditional continental markings around the city. And that's also been helpful as we've been short on labor on our striping crews, and it's easier to manage one paint color than two paint colors. So I understand it's a little bit of a transition, but happy to get feedback from the commission.
So we're referring to textured asphalt.
Yeah.
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 Thank you very much for that. I do think that they stand out. The white striping stands out quite a bit more. And I noticed it on Mansfield Avenue, but I am sure that former DPW commissioner is very happy to see that take place. And I'm glad you had a conversation with him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Damiani.
My only comment was around temporary sidewalks, specifically around the South End City Market area with the construction for the Champlain Parkway. I've been traveling that particular corridor a lot lately, and I'm just worried about sort of the ADA accessibility of the gravel that's currently out there for that particular, I think it's on the north side of Flynn Ave right now. Even just crossing it yesterday in the morning, I think I would find it pretty difficult if I was using a walker or some sort of mobility device to get across that particular area, specifically to a local grocery store in that area. Sort of heightens the attention for me for that particular section. And I don't know what in the future can be done to sort of improve that temporary.
Yep. So I would not disagree with you. And as a matter of fact, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've been pressing the contractor to be more mindful of that issue, along with traffic control signage that's in bike lanes. And so we're working with both the contractor and our RE to make sure that they have some higher degree of sensitivity to those issues than they have in recent past. I know that they're pushing hard to get this utility work done on Flint Avenue before cold hits and we have no asphalt, but that doesn't excuse the fact that we need to make sure it's reasonably accessible and safe for all modes. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Montana.
No real comments, but I'm happy to see that the work on the marketplace garage is moving ahead. Yeah, certainly really important work, and especially as we move on to looking at what the long-term future of that site is. I'm excited to be part of that conversation.
All right, thank you. Couple things on the leaf pickup at my public eye. It seemed like it was timed well this year. I don't know if you were chatting with the arborist or just lucked out there, but it's
It's all well planned.
Mother Nature.
you
People
nailed
were
it. The
pushing us
late
to-
foliage this year,
Pushing us to go a week later and,
right between that and the snow.
yeah.
Nicely done. Glad to hear on the hiring updates. That's exciting. I noticed that those positions were no longer listed, and I was hoping to hear that. So thank you. Couple things. I noticed a lot of like digging in the right of way around town of late on like Union and Bank and Cliff and all over the area. Once in a while down, there's a excavator deep in the road. I was like, what is going on there? I was curious if that's the kind of thing. I don't know. It probably, I'm guessing not terribly well planned, or like, I don't know if that makes it on the construction portal, or if you ever get inquiries like that. But I'm curious, maybe for Mr. Goulding, is for like, I don't know, ad hoc or emergency stuff, or like the people are digging, what's going on, questions. And obviously, like, it wasn't like in front of my house, so I wouldn't have been notified. I'm sort of walking by, like,
Yeah.
do you have a means to get that information out there, or a place for people to check? Or
Yeah, certainly. That's a
why
great.
they're digging in the road.
That's a great question. I think projects like that tend to fall in a couple different buckets. One of which would be the long-term projects we know about that would be on the construction portal that we hope people are checking first. So that's number one. As a caveat to that, and that's going to apply to all of these, if this is a project that's going to lead to any kind of utility impacts like loss of water on our end, or any kind of major traffic disruption that we can foresee, any kind of traffic control that's really going to disrupt the public and that we can give actionable info for, we are going to use the VT alert system at this point. Depending on the area of the city, depending on the level of impact, we can reach up to about 12, 15,000 people with a text message within seconds or minutes. So that kind of applies for any of these buckets I talked about. So there's the long-term buckets, there's the short-term kind of, we recognize there's something in the right of way that needs to happen in an actionable kind of quick way. We had a few incidents on Pine Street recently. Similarly, we've used VT Alert, social media. Some of the feedback we get from social media is, number one, the metrics are just down since the pandemic for some reason. We talked to other kind of communications departments in the city, and so we don't get eyes on that as much. And the other kind of level of feedback we've gotten is that just doesn't reach people as in targeted of a way. So we're using more travel advisory language on our website, big yellow block letters on the top of the website, VT alert for things that we can predict, that we know about, that is fed to me in a kind of timely, useful way. There are, I think, a third bucket that crosses our excavation inspector shop, which if it's a private project that's doing any kind of digging on their own, or any kind of project that's encumbering part of their property, that doesn't often get to us. We do have a certain level of requirement for the contractor to meet. Norm may have more articulation to say about that, but like if there are certain levels of impact, will require certain signage, will require certain outreach to abutting neighbors. If that does reach me and we've determined that that's a large enough project, we're going to use similar systems. But for the public, I think what you're asking for is like, what actionable info can we say to the public so that they can feel informed? I'd really encourage people to sign up for VT Alert. You'll get texts, you'll get emails, and in certain cases, auto calls if it's a certain level of impact, like a boil water advisory. I would say check our website, burlingtonvt.gov/DPW. We're using a lot more of quick hit kind of language. Social media, yes, but Front Porch Forum, I should also put in kind of the top tier. We've greatly expanded across division, across the board, our use of that. There are some projects where we've deemed, and it's either gotten to us late, gotten to me late, where we've deemed just doesn't have the level of impact where we're not doing anything. But if you are seeing things that A, is disrupting daily life, or B, you think the public should know about, we'd like to know. We're doing some soil boring work on the water resources end to do some kind of inventorying of our subsurface soil conditions around the city. We have done some targeted Front Porch Forum outreach about that. We haven't done that much more, but it's important work, and it's pretty interesting for folks who are into that. So there's a kind of top tier VT Alert, Front Porch Forum. Check our website, and then there's, if you're on social media, hopefully you're coming across our page and our posts, and you should see most of what we're up to there.
So your comments have kind of prompted me to here's an opportunity for the public to see or hear some key points here. So the parkway itself and the construction that's ongoing is crossing and intersecting major streets. They're crossing and intersecting Flint Avenue. Our longer history was Sears Lane. It's Flint Avenue, and now we're slowly progressing south and impacting Home Avenue. So it's important that people are aware of our project website to sign up to get our weekly construction updates and to check in. We are making an active effort to actually, as of this evening, put hangers on, door hangers for residents west of Home Avenue that are directly impacted by what is future work to do stormwater water supply work within Home Avenue. It's also worth noting, come spring, there's going to be significant impacts to make improvements to those rail crossings that are associated with the project. So people should hopefully be aware of the website, but we're trying to actively get them signed up to get weekly updates. And we'll see how it goes, but this is kind of a chance to kind of sell to the world that there is a lot of activity there, and there's going to be disruption, and I think no one likes surprises, and we try to get the word out as much as we can, but for whatever reason we don't hit everyone that's impacted by it. And if we can really kind of get the word out, then people are less surprised, and it's less of a struggle for everybody, because everyone has to live their lives and get to work and so on and so forth, and we're trying to be as least disruptive as possible, but it's a very disruptive activity.
Well said. Thank you. I see Front Porch Forum is neighborhood specific, which is great. Are the VT alerts, is that generally like a general like Burlington infrastructure, or is that more targeted to area?
So for VT Alert, it's really become a really important tool that we've, I think, used almost exclusively in the city. We have helped parks get set up for some of the beach issues they might encounter on cyanobacteria, as well as CETO now with warming shelters. We've trained their staff. But basically, with VT Alert, we have a couple different tiers. We've sketched out a process internally in how we want to use it. And so basically, we can send out citywide alerts to registered users via text, via email, and via robocall, which we're not using often. We don't want to hit alert fatigue. So that can be citywide for registered users on anything, but basically major traffic related impacts like Pine Street issues, North Ave issues. When it comes to traffic or actionable details we can share with the public, that's where we're using the specific, and I should add, for the public and for the benefit of the commission, we do have a website accessed right off of our homepage that kind of lays out how we use VT Alert. But basically, you can sign up for road issues, construction-related traffic impacts, I should say. You can sign up for boil water advisories. You can sign up for snow ban, winter parking ban issues. You can sign up for beach closure notices, and those would be specific categories you're choosing. There is a level of impact, like a boil water advisory, without regard for what you've signed up for as a member of the public. We want you to know, and we want you to know quick. So that's going out to anybody who's registered to receive any City of Burlington alert. You can sign up for the benefit of the commission, for the benefit of folks who may not be Burlington residents, you can sign up for any number of addresses in Vermont. So we are encouraging business owners, folks who might have older family members who live in town. You can sign up for Burlington alerts. You can sign up for specific address alerts. So that way you can stay informed if you own a business, if you have a relative that lives in town. I hope I've answered your question, but
Yeah,
if I haven't,
yeah, I think so. And thanks for the overview. I feel like I'm signed up to a bunch of those alerts. So I forget there's a number of options.
we want you to hear from us,
Yeah.
but not too much.
The ability for us to draw a map is huge. And so for water main breaks, such as on New North End, we had on Stanford last year, able to draw polygon around the folks who are going to get impacted and just Vermont alert them. So the tool is really powerful. We are going to stick with it for the long term. So really encourage people to sign up.
Great, thank you.
So the Champlain Parkway's project is champlainparkway.com. So people want to look and see and check it out.
Excellent. Yeah, and I'm sure, and of course, like your regular updates, sort of every once in a while, plugged up. Oh yeah, there's the newsletter if you really want to get the weekly up. Like it. Last thing along the lines, at times when there's been, for like a pop-up or like a what's it called, pop-up bike lane or something, there'll be like a sign with a QR thing. Like, what is this? What is a rain garden, or what is a whatever with like a QR?
Links to the project
Yeah.
in some way.
It might, I don't know if you're ever in the habit of like digging a bunch of holes in the ground. You have a little sandwich board, like water improvements in work, or prepping for next year's water improvements.
Yep.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. The lawn signs have been a big hit. We'll continue to use those glass signs.
Yeah. Great. All right. Nothing further on my end. Appreciate all the updates here. With that, move forward to item 9.
Motion to adjourn.
I move
Adjournment,
it.
next meeting date. Hang on, we've got a motion from Commissioner Barr here. Was that a second I heard?
Yeah, for a second, third, whatever.
We have a second from Commissioner Montano. Excellent. Any discussion around the motion?
Maybe.
Yes.
Are we all good with that date of the 21st? It's close to some major holidays. Do we have a quorum?
I will be in California. Might be traveling.
Maybe an early afternoon?
Right. Others sounding okay for the 21st? Okay. We'll try to make it a short agenda.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
We'll plan as if it's happening December 21.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thanks for the discussion under adjournment.
Any other discussion on this motion? Let's go to a vote then. To the phone, Commissioner Overby,
Aye.
Commissioner Fox,
Aye.
Commissioner Barr,
Aye.
Commissioner Damiani,
Aye.
Commissioner Montano.
Aye.
I for myself. We are adjourned at 7:56 p.m. Good evening, all.
All right.
Thank
See
you.
you next time.